Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
Well, you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever. Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's Tuesday. Wow. Okay, we got a good show for y'all today. Thank you for joining me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Very important. So now, got a lot of different stories here. Yes, we're going to talk about Ukraine, including the Ukrainian ambassador ship posting at the UN. That's great. Fun. We also have a so-called foreign policy expert that regularly goes on Tucker Carlson. He's talking about how, you know what? Yeah, maybe we should just, maybe the Ukrainians should just give Putin everything he wants. Oh, it's not going to surprise you, you know, his positions on other things. So we're going to talk about that. We have, of course, Republicans doubling down on taxing the poor, or at least wanting to. This is Rick Scott, former governor of Florida. That's going to be an interesting segment. We also have Michigan Republicans actually going after one of their own for, I don't know, some pretty disastrous, disgusting comments. And then, of course, we have a good news here when it comes to tuition-free college education. So that's an excellent story. We're going to have a good news on that on the domestic front. So that said, let's dive into it. All right. So again, like and share the stream. Let's do it. Let's start with the UN. All right. Monday's meeting of the United Nations, well, it devolved in this meeting. There was a discussion on Ukraine and involved the Ukrainian ambassador basically telling his Russian counterpart to go get some mental health care.
Posted today this text. Foreign Minister Lavrov. The goal of Russia's special military operation is to stop any war that could take place on Ukrainian territory or that could start from there. Russian embassy in London, retweeted by the Russian Foreign Ministry. Let me remind the Russian diplomats that in London, in case of need for mental help, you can dial NHS line 111. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that happened. Fun. Apparently, the United Nations has become a place where ambassadors can basically shitpost in real time, dunk on each other. That's fun. But look, the Ukrainian ambassador is correct in pointing out how ridiculous the Russian statement is. So wait a minute. So the Russians are saying, okay, look, we invaded Ukraine. Well, we didn't actually invade Ukraine. No, we're on a peacekeeping mission. Yes, that's what we're there to just keep the peace. With tanks and artillery and soldiers and all that stuff. Yeah, we're invading for peace. Well, you can't do that. That's not a thing. You can invade for peace. Invading for peace is like fucking for abstinence. It doesn't work. That's not what happens. That's not the reality of the situation. And so, look, again, there's a lot of different Russian arguments that are going on here. For example, they're protecting people in Donbass, Donetsk, and Luhansk. From the Ukrainian bombing, right? That's been going on. 2014, yeah, it's so much bombing. Okay, but if you're going to protect those areas, say you are actually in a so-called peacekeeping mission to protect citizens or Russian-speaking or Russian-aligned citizens in those areas, then why are you everywhere else in Ukraine? Again, there's a 40-mile convoy of tanks and artillery that are stuck outside of Kiev. So, and of course you have the shelling in Mariupol, Kharkiv, other places all over. So why are they all over there if the whole supposed mission was peacekeeping in the eastern regions? That doesn't make any sense. Again, this is not at all limited to the eastern borders of Russia. And so the whole thing doesn't make any sense. But that's why it goes to where some of the arguments that are being floated here as like, oh, you don't understand, this needs to be a buffer between the aggressiveness of the West. And again, I've pointed out how, okay, NATO expansion, not good. We shouldn't be, NATO should not be expanding. There was a little bit of a gentleman's agreement way back when, I think back in the 90s. I covered all that stuff. And I can understand a rational Russian position of, hey, there's a military alliance that is not exactly friendly towards me or my country's interests, and it seems to be expanding eastward, and so we're a little concerned about that. That said, remember, Ukraine, the President Zelensky is like, look, in the talks with Russia, we don't want to, okay, we're going to decide not to join in the NATO alliance, and so you don't have to worry about that. But apparently, that wasn't the actual issue here, because you can go back and you can see video of Putin talking about how it was just a terrible idea to actually give to give places like Crimea back to Ukraine when it should have been part of Russia, and so all of this stuff, right? And so it makes me consider, it makes me believe that this entire thing was planned from the get-go, where of course Russia wants to come in and do regime change. Basically remove Zelensky and put in their own person that's going to be more Russia friendly. And so that's what's going on. Now, of course, propaganda, and by the way, all sides use propaganda. There's propaganda, there's pro-Ukrainian propaganda, there's pro-Russian propaganda, there's pro-West propaganda. And so understand that there's propaganda from all different sides here. And that's kind of what happens in a conflict. And so, I mean, there are, points of like where there's Ukrainian propaganda that is supposed to elicit, feelings of national pride and all that stuff in order to help resist the Russian invasion. And of course, there's Russian propaganda. This is an example of that. What Russia is doing, what Russia is talking about being a peacekeeping mission, that is Russian propaganda. That's not at all true, and it's an attempt to gaslight everybody. Apparently gaslighting his own troops. And so no, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, the troops, from what I've heard, the troops were told, oh, this is a training exercise, it's not an invasion. Okay, it kind of is, but it's actually more of a peacekeeping mission. But don't worry, we're peacekeeping, and you will be greeted there as liberators. Where have we heard that one before? Weird. But at the same time, look, maybe if they had stayed in the areas where, in the east where people were identified more with Russia, okay, you could make a case, but the rest of the country has their own culture and identity that happens to be closer to the West and wants to be closer to the West. And so that's something that apparently Vladimir Putin is not happy about, which is why this is happening now. And so one person asked, why shouldn't NATO be expanding? Why shouldn't the rest of us be able to protect ourselves? It's more about trying to avoid a situation where, again, you have other countries like Russia that feel threatened and then would want to lash out. We would actually like to reduce tensions with other countries and Russia. And basically the whole point of NATO was to be against the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union no longer exists. And so understand that what NATO is a military alliance. Now, if you're talking about Ukraine and countries joining the European Union, I don't have any problem with that. I think that's totally fine. But Putin did not agree. Putin thinks that joining the European Union is even too much of an affront. And so, no, I think, I think that there is some valid concern there, but not enough. Certainly nothing to justify this ridiculous invasion that has put so many people lives in jeopardy. And so, all right, moving on.
You think the end is in sight?
Well, the end, the end of this phase is still a few days away.
That was retired Army Colonel Douglas McGregor, apparently choking on his own BS. Now, McGregor, of course, used to serve as an advisor at the Department of Defense during the Trump administration. And he went on Fox News basically to say that, hey, Ukraine should just give Putin everything he wants. The entire country, just turn it over. Oh, okay. I mean, honestly, why are you resisting the violent takeover of your country? I mean, don't you know that that puts normal civilians in harm's way? Well, apparently invading your neighbor puts people in harm's way. But once again, he's going to make Putin's case for him in this next video. Take a look.
Russian forces, I think, frankly, were too gentle. They've now corrected that. So I would say another 10 days, this should be completely over. But the question is, what is it that Zelensky is going to do? The Russians have made it very clear what they want is a neutral Ukraine. This could have ended days ago if he accepted that. And then they can adjust the borders. But the eastern part of Ukraine is firmly in Russian hands. But again, the Russians are not seizing territory. They're destroying Ukrainian forces. That's their focus.
Colonel, it sounds like you don't approve of Zelensky's stand.
Oh, I think Zelensky is a puppet.
He's not a hero when he's standing up for himself and his own people? You don't think he's a hero?
No, I do not. I don't see anything heroic about the man. And I think the most heroic thing that he can do right now is to come to terms with reality. Neutralize Ukraine. This is not a bad thing. A neutral Ukraine would be good for us as well as for Russia. It would create the buffer that, frankly, both sides want.
Wait, okay, hold on. So wait, you're not seizing territory from Ukraine, but then Russia is going to have to adjust the Ukrainian borders. Well, how do you do that if you don't seize territory? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, what else does adjusting the borders mean? I mean, that's what's going on. And by the way, the first time they've adjusted borders, they took Crimea in 2014. They annexed Crimea. That was after Ukraine ousted their previous leader, Viktor Yanukovych. So now that was, again, back in 2014. He's kicked out of power in that year after widespread protests over his decision to reject the country's agreement, to align with the European Union and eventually join the European Union. Now, Yanukovych rejected that package. He decided to go with a Russian financial bailout and tighter ties to Russia and Putin. And so now, of course, look, there's always been a lot of allegations when it comes to corruption in Ukraine with the Ukrainian government. Yanukovych, of course, was alleged that he had embezzled funds from the government and that he had favored a small group of very wealthy Ukrainian business owners, including his son, Alexander Yanukovych, and members of extended family. And, well, after he was tossed out of power, where did he go? Well, he fled to Russia. And so now he seems to be Putin's choice to lead Ukraine if they're able to overthrow Zelensky. And so once again, what this is a regime change war. Putin wants this Zelensky out and Yanukovych put back in. And so, look, that's the situation. Okay, it is a regime change war, not totally different, at least in that part of it, than the invasion of Iraq from the United States. And so, right down to the false pretenses. All right. Now, that said, he said something about Ukraine. Oh, well, if Ukraine would have been neutral, right? Neutral. So how was Ukraine not being neutral? By wanting to be part of the EU? Or being closer to the EU? By the way, it takes decades to even become a member of the European Union, and that's different than NATO. That's not a military alliance. Again, if Russia felt uncomfortable with NATO, I can totally understand that on their borders. I get it. And NATO's not exactly Russia friendly, right? So, okay, don't have them join NATO, but European Union, that's totally fine. I don't see an issue with this. But apparently Putin did. Putin didn't like that. He would rather have Ukraine be essentially a puppet state like they were before under Yanukovych. And so he wants that puppet state back. Simple as that. That's it. Let's go back to McGregor. Speaking of puppets, right? All right. I got another video here. I'm sorry. No, I don't. But I want to go and explain kind of where this guy's coming from, McGregor. He's got a pretty bad past for some controversial statements that he has made. In fact, he has called for the deployment of the U.S. military. So before I get to that, he's like, well, I'm very anti-war. Oh, okay. Well, anti-war. I'm anti-war. Great. But instead of posting the military overseas, which again, I agree that we should not be doing, well, he would rather deploy the military on the Mexican border. Why? To prevent an invasion, he says, of immigrants, orchestrated by none other than George Soros. Because of course. Yep, that's great replacement theory, which is again a deeply anti-Semitic conspiracy theory echoed by white supremacists. Now, he also claimed that, of course, the military is too woke. The diversity agenda, critical race theory, vaccine mandates, they're all intended to purge white Christian men from the military, of course. And that in order to solve this, the United States may need a civil war to get America back on track. The guy's an absolute lunatic. And by the way, going back to other controversial statements from this guy, apparently his his anti-war stance goes all the way back to even World War II, where he said, us fighting the Nazis, a bit of a disaster. He said that there was absolutely no desire in the United States to go to war with Nazi Germany. Here's his quote. People were not terribly happy about having to fight the Second War. There was obviously for fighting the Japanese because Japan made the serious mistake of attacking us. But there was great reluctance to be involved in these wars. What was there? Really? So he's making the point of saying, fighting the Nazis, we were just really not into that. Not into fighting the Nazis. Oh, but it gets worse. He then said, and again, as you know, some would argue, and there's substantial evidence for it, by the way, there's no evidence for that the only way to extricate ourselves from the terrible depression was to bring on this conflict with Japan, which was made inevitable when we embargoed them. That may have well been the case. Oh, you see, the Pearl Harbor, we did that. That was our fault. Yep, we shouldn't have embargoed the Japanese. Wow. You know that there was a Gallup poll that was taken about 10 days after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. You know how many people supported going to war with Germany, Nazi Germany? 91%. But it was not very popular. Not very popular attacking, going to war with Nazi Germany, with the Nazis, with Hitler. Right. So now look, this guy appears to have a hard-on for Nazis, for fascists. I wonder why. Oh, right. It's probably because he is one. Now, fun fact, this guy also happens to be a mainstay on Tucker Carlson. It's his foreign policy guy that he turns to. So, oh, wonderful. Look, no surprise. Again, when you're dealing with people who advise Tucker Carlson on their foreign policy, it's not surprise that he's a complete and utter ghoul. All right. Fun. So let's get off of Ukraine. Let's go more domestic here. Most Republicans like to pretend that they want to cut taxes for working people, the poor, working class, but not Rick Scott, by the way. Rick Scott, when asked about taxing the poor, he says, yes.
I think I'll take my record against anybody's. I cut taxes and fees 100 times when I was governor. All right? I'm not raising anybody's taxes. But here's what's not fair. We have hardworking Americans. They're paying all these taxes. Our retirees pay them. Who's not? We've got some billionaires not paying it. And we've got people that want free government stuff, and they don't want to have any skin in the game.
I mean,
that's not fair.
If people pay like even $100 in taxes a year,
$10,
or at least that's what it is, paying taxes, and you don't want people to get bankrupt. Obviously, just like what?
I would be held accountable.
But
I'm fine with
yes,
that.
You're fine with being. So
I'm fine with accountability.
You're fine of being holding this up to the voters.
Oh yeah.
I mean, poor people. I mean, they should pay taxes. I mean, Laura Ingram's like, well, how much could it be, Gregory? $10 for taxes? Seriously. For one, okay, you realize poor people, yes, while many do not pay federal income taxes, they do pay state and local taxes, right? And by the way, the reason that so many people do not pay federal income taxes is because they don't have any money. They got no money. They don't make enough to pay federal income taxes. And so, by the way, again, in states that do have local taxes, yes, they usually have to pay that. sales taxes, gas taxes, all these different taxes, Social Security, Medicare, all these different taxes. And by the way, when you're paying on those things, that adds up. So maybe that $100, $10, hey, look, that might make the difference here between getting back and forth to work that day, that week, in order to make your paycheck. They're so absolutely disconnected from average people. It really is. And so, but understand too, the overall message here from Rick Scott is, oh, look at these poor people. God, they're so lazy. All they want is this free stuff. And they don't even pay any taxes. They gotta have skin in the game. No, here, and by the way, he says it's not fair. Well, no, what isn't fair is having wages that are so low, so incredibly low for the average American that they, will work full time and they're still in poverty. I mean, that's insane. Again, the price of gas, for example, has gone up a lot. Again, a lot of it is a result of, you've got price gouging, of course, from corporations that have made $46 billion so far this year in profits. These are the most profitable large corporations in the country. So, you have people that are profiteering off the insane prices of gas as a result of the Ukrainian conflict. And of course, you also have food that's more expensive, housing that's more expensive, education that's more expensive, you have childcare that's more expensive, and yet, you've got all this inflation, and yet wages have not kept up with it. And yet, Rick Scott, who did Medicare fraud in the state of Florida, literally stealing from the taxpayers their tax money, well, he says, well, the poor need to pay more. Oh, really? Right. And by the way, he says that, he did mention, there's some billionaires that don't pay taxes either, right? And my plan is gonna, my plan is gonna do something about that. Yeah, it definitely. Well, it turns out when you look at his plan, it doesn't do anything about that. According to a state-by-state analysis of Scott's plan, released on Monday by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, they estimate that the poorest fifth of Americans under Scott's plan would pay 34% of the tax increases. Remember, he said that we're not going to increase taxes on anybody, except that his plan literally will. And the next fifth of Americans would pay 45% of that tax increase. The poorest 40% of people in the United States would see an average increase in their federal income taxes of $1,000. While the richest 1%, you know how much they would see? Not a penny. Not a penny. Here's a breakdown. Take a look. So this graph, as I said, this is from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, and it shows, oh, look at that. Oh, you have the poorest Americans that are going to have to pay more. And but the richest 1%, nothing, no increase in their taxes. Wow, look at that. But you understand, that's the so-called populist Republican plan. That's what he calls it. That's what Rick Scott says. Making the working class pay way more in taxes while leaving rich people completely unscathed. I don't know what's populist about that. I'm pretty sure he's probably reading the polls backwards or being more honest about his plan. Because, look, hey, the people that he hangs around, rich people, the donors, well, it's pretty popular with them. And so, oh, look at that. It's a populist plan. Everybody I talk to loves it. No. Look, the majority of Americans, average working class people, they actually do want the rich to pay their fair share. But it gets worse, though, because Scott's plan not only would raise taxes on poor people, but it would also sunset all federal legislation after 5 years. That would eliminate Social Security, Medicare, civil rights laws. I don't know what that has to do with any of this. And other measures unless Congress actively votes to reauthorize them. And of course, do you think that that would happen? That Congress would reauthorize this? No, of course not. Now, there is one thing. And by the way, that segment, it led to Laura Ingraham trashing Mitch McConnell. Now, that's kind of interesting because, now look, this guy, Rick Scott, saying, oh, I got the populist plan, right? Now, Mitch McConnell's like, no, this is not a good plan. Now, Republicans, apparently the Republican establishment, would never openly vote for this piece of crap. Why is that? Now, look, Medicare and Social Security happen to be incredibly popular with the vast majority of the American people, right? Now, that includes Republicans. Republicans, overwhelmingly, Republican voters, I should say, they love these programs, Medicare and Social Security. And so, of course, publicly, the Republican Party has to be like, oh, no, we are in favor of Social Security, and we are going to protect Social Security and Medicare from the Democrats who are trying to cut it. And so, look, both sides are like, oh, yeah, Social Security, the other side's going to cut it. They're all going to get rid of it. In reality, of course, there are some serious issues here with, for example, the cap on Medicare, right? Or the Social Security cap, right? Rich people, once they get to a certain amount of money, they don't have to pay into it anymore. You lift that cap, Social Security becomes solvent for the end of time. But they're not interested in doing that. Now, as far as Democrats are concerned, well, they don't want to expand Medicare to everyone and, do any sort of good reforms like having Medicare for all, for one, but also Medicare expanding to cover, vision, dental, and hearing. And so all of that stuff, all those things are things that we actually do need to do for Medicare. Now, the Democrats, of course, corporate Democrats, they're not in favor of that because they get paid by health insurance companies. The same way as Republicans also get paid by health insurance companies, and those are the biggest donors. And by the way, not just health insurance companies, but also you have hospital groups and you have pharmaceutical companies that give massive amounts of donations to both Democrats and Republicans in order to prevent Medicare from being expanded. And by the way, Republicans also get funded to chip away at Medicare and to chip away at Social Security because Wall Street cannot wait to privatize your retirement. And so understand what the reality is here, okay? Behind closed doors, Republicans are going to do everything they can to try to kill those programs. But what Rick Scott is doing is he's just openly giving away the game. It's both stupid and also incredibly brazen. I mean, look, wanting to tax poor people, leaving rich people alone, and getting rid of these programs that have lifted millions of poor, disabled, and elderly Americans out of poverty, it's not a popular position. But you ask Rick Scott, he says, well, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Well, I'm sure the American people feel otherwise. All right. Let's see. Oh, shoot. Okay. Let's move on. A Republican nominee for the Michigan House of Representatives is facing some backlash for a comment he made on Facebook Live over the weekend. So now he was discussing, of course, decertification of the election. Yes, that's right. We're talking about decertification here. So already election conspiracy theories, but if that's not bad enough, here's a comment. Take a look.
You know, having 3 daughters, and I tell my daughters, well, if rape is inevitable, you should just lie back and enjoy it. So that's not how we roll. That's not how I won this election. We go right at it.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Okay. There we go. So now the person who said that unfortunate statement is Robert R.J. Regan. So he's a Republican. He just won a special election to fill the Michigan House seat in District 74. The 74th district, of course, is in Kent County in West Michigan. Reagan won the special election with 32.9% of the vote, beating out the candidate in second place by about 81 votes. 81 votes. So now look, I'm going to show you there's some pushback in that call. Let me show you that video here. Take a look.
Streaming on YouTube, probably not for much longer after what Robert just said.
In all fairness,
Hold on.
that was
All
a
right,
shameful comment.
Amber's-
Advice to give to your daughter. Don't do that. Fight all the time. Don't.
No,
get
no, no.
raped.
He said no. He was saying.
No,
he
I
was
get
saying
it.
Don't do that.
I get it. Shameful.
Shameful. I mean, you can't really put it any better. Yes. Yes, that was quite shameful. Now, the host, Adam D'Angeli, defended Regan a bit. He said he thinks the guy had misspoke in trying to say that not contesting the election would be like those comments, right? Quote, maybe not the best analogy, but he was speaking extemporaneously. Yes, but why? Why would you say that? Why would you say that? I mean, why does your brain immediately go to one of the worst things that could happen? And why does it always seem to be white men making that comparison? What is wrong with you? Like, you know that's going to get you in trouble, right? You know that's a stupid thing, a stupid comparison. Why would you do that? Why would you go with the rape analogy? Stop. Just stop it. Stop it. And again, that's not even getting into the nonsense of decertification, which was this conversation, what it was all about. There was no attempt to steal the election. Well, at least not for the Democrats. On the Republican side, there were fake electors. On Trump's side, they were looking to actually steal the election. I talked about the Green Bay sweep. This is, again, Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon. Navarro openly talking about it in his memoir, where it's like, oh, yeah, Steve Bannon and I hatched a plan. And the whole plan is to, lobby Mike Pence to not certify the election, which, again, is a completely ceremonial role. Doesn't actually mean anything. It's like throwing out the opening pitch in a baseball game. And that's going to cause apparently a lot of uproar, outrage. Oh my God, I can't believe Mike Pence didn't certify the election, which would allow Republicans to blanket the airwaves full with massive amounts of propaganda about how, there's election fraud, voter fraud, irregularities, and all this stuff. We need to do something about it. And then, of course, that would coincide with all of the different challenges in the elections in different states, including Michigan, which, yes, did try to send fake electors among several other states. There were letters sent to the National Archives certifying that it was not Biden, but Trump that won the election in 2020. And so that was the actual attempt to try to steal the election. So now, let's go back here to some pushback. Now, this guy got a lot of pushback from Republicans. And again, I'm pretty sure, Amber Harris was on that call because she agrees with the decertification. But even she's like, no, this is horrible. This is ridiculous. Shameful, shameful comparison. And I do absolutely agree with that. And the rest of the Republican Party seems to agree. Tory Sachs of the right-wing Michigan Freedom Fund issued a statement following this, saying R.J. Regan's disgusting and dehumanizing comments of the horror of sexual assault, along with the support of the murderous dictator Vladimir Putin, are despicable and completely disqualify him from holding public office. So now, I add in that last part, which is, again, part of the statement, but Regan, he said some controversial stuff before. Apparently, he called the Russian invasion of Ukraine a hoax and completely backs Vladimir Putin. So that's interesting. Now, what a guy, right? What a guy. Now, the rest of her statement, quote, I teach my 4 young daughters to stand up for themselves, to know their worth, and to fight back and speak out against creeps like Regan. R.J. Regan doesn't belong anywhere near the state capitol, and that is why we endorsed and supported his opponent. These are right-wing organizations, right? Now, Regan did not respond to a call to his cell phone for comment, but he did respond, and you're gonna love this, right? He said that his remarks were taken out of context and were being used against him by a, quote, leftist group doing what they do. Yeah. The context. Oh, you took me out of context. Usually every time they say that, the context doesn't make it better. The context, and again, it's a deflection. Again, Joe Rogan has said that before. All of these other, actual like right wingers have said this before as well. And are like, oh yeah, I can't believe you took me out of context. No, we said everything that you, like, we just repeated your words. This is what you said. Seriously. Like, that's not taking you out of like, the context is there, and the context does not make it better because you used a rape analogy. Don't do that. That's so stupid. But again, there's one more fun angle to this story. All right. So now these comments, obviously, he referenced his own daughters, right? Well, one of his daughter decided that, well, she's not in favor of his political career. Just like Paul Gosar, members of his family have refused to endorse him, and in fact, endorsed his opponent. When he ran for office 2 years ago, his daughter, Stephanie Regan, here's what she tweeted, quote, if you're in Michigan and 18 plus, please, for the love of God, do not vote for my dad for state representative. Tell everyone. Wow. When your own daughter don't want to vote for you and also encourages everyone else to not to vote for you, well, I mean, there seems to be a problem. And again, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to find that this guy, again, he's already an election conspiracy theorist, so that's one strike. But I wonder what other types of conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theories that he believes in. Could there be some QAnon there? There could be. I mean, already that's crazy is really, really crazy. But there are other conspiracy theories that are probably worse. A Great Replacement, again, deeply anti-Semitic. I don't know if he believes in any of these. I'm just saying that it wouldn't be surprising, given how even the Republican Party in Michigan and the Republicans are pushing back on him. And so that is interesting. So now, that said, he already won a special election. He's going to run again on May 3rd. He will be facing Carol Glanville, a Democrat, in the special election. Glanville also released a statement. This is the Democrat here that reads in part, quote, as a woman, human, and public servant, I am stunned that a person who wishes to hold public office would hold such beliefs. I did not think I would need to clearly state on the campaign trail that rape is never inevitable, acceptable, or warranted, and is the worst type of personal violation anyone could ever experience. Again, if you were doing that, if you were using that comparison to prop up a conspiracy theory backed up by nothing that somehow Joe Biden stole the election with voter fraud, to that, again, no, that's still 100% unacceptable. She closed that out by saying, in empathy and compassion, I stand with survivors everywhere while defending human rights. So there it is. Now, again, this reminds me of all the different comments from Republicans who get in trouble by comparing things to rape. And not only that, but Todd Akin, if you can remember, he was a candidate who talked about legitimate rape in the case of abortion. Oh yeah, if it's a legitimate rape, well, then the body has ways of shutting that down. No, please stop. Please stop saying those things, and please stop making rape comparisons. This is ridiculous. It is stupid, and I mean, it's going to get you in trouble. And I hope it does. I hope people notice this and are like, wow, this guy's unhinged. We're not going to vote for him. You know, one can only hope, right? All right. One more story for y'all. And this is a good one. Good story. The state of New Mexico has officially passed tuition-free higher education. So now, according to CNN, on Friday, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham had signed Senate Bill 140, otherwise known as the New Mexico Opportunity Scholarship Act. So now, this was first introduced back in 2019, and the plan would waive tuition for students, any students attending any in-state public school or tribal college, including community college. And so that's amazing. So let me give you her statement on that. She said, for over a quarter of a century, New Mexico has been a national leader in providing free college to its residents. A fully funded opportunity scholarship opens the door for every New Mexican to reach higher, strengthening our economy, our families, and our communities. Signing this legislation sends a clear message to New Mexicans that we believe in them and the contributions they will make for their families and the future of our great state. Awesome. That is excellent news. So now, as far as the criteria is concerned, eligible students must be enrolled in a minimum of 6 credit hours, so that's part-time, and maintain a grade point average of at least 2.5 during their time. The Opportunity Scholarship can be used to cover up to 100% of tuition and required fees at any New Mexico public college or university. So now, I don't know if that includes books. Likely not. Books, of course, can be rather expensive. Supplies can be rather expensive. But again, tuition is a huge, huge part of the cost of college. Now, that said, apparently, you are able to, at this point in time, use Pell Grants to cover the cost of whether it be books or supplies or transportation or lodging, housing, etc., along with this scholarship. So, again, you know, Pell Grant, if it covers books and stuff, and it does, well, look at that. That's free college. Awesome. Awesome. Now, of course, there is no application. You have to enroll for the minimum amount of hours, which I said is 6. And then, of course, you're supposed to go and speak with the financial aid office in order to get you basically going on the scholarship and have your college completely paid for. And by the way, again, it covers full tuition and fees at New Mexico public colleges and universities. It includes part-time and full-time students. It's generally available to all New Mexico residents. And if you had to drop school beforehand, say you couldn't afford it, you can pick it up and have the rest of your education paid for. Nice. So this is, again, this is a good thing. Now, this is also, again, along with other states that are doing their own kind of reforms. Now in 2019, California waived tuition for the first time. Full-time students attending 2 years of community college. That's a good start. In 2021, North Carolina offered 2 years of free community college. Again, that's also a good start. North Texas, the University of North Texas System, I'm sorry, not North Texas, the University of Texas System Regions established a $300 million endowment to expand tuition assistance across 7 institutions. Again, not as ambitious as some of the other states, but it's a good start. That said, I think we need to go further. Obviously, we need a national movement to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And alongside of that, we need to cancel student loan debt. Now, look, if you want to help struggling Americans right now, and you want to do it without needing Congress, well, guess what? Biden can cancel student loan debt today, right now. He hasn't yet, and I don't necessarily know that he would. Certainly, I wouldn't guess that he would cancel all of it, but maybe 10,000 or, something like that. That said, there was a recent article where a top aide had floated the idea of, yes, student loan debt cancellation, or at the very least, some sort of extension for the pause on student loan payments. So that's Ron Klain. So Ron Klain, again, he's not a nobody. He's not a coffee boy in the Biden administration. No, he's Biden's top aide. And so, look, you got to get permission. If you're going to go out and say that on a podcast, generally that statement's going to be vetted, and the administration is going to make sure that it's okay. Not only that, but the people that were reporting on that were Politico. So, I mean, Politico is establishment 101. So Ron Klain goes on Pod Save America. Again, you don't go on Pod Save America unless you want to reach the establishment, the libs, and as well as, having this reported by Politico. It's obvious that they want that message boosted. I think that they're A/B testing to see which one is more popular, extending the student loan tuition freeze, or going for straight up cancellation. Again, both of those things Joe Biden could do today unilaterally, and it would help his poll numbers quite a bit. That had been flagging, at least before Ukraine. There's been a little bit of a rebound because people generally like the direction that he's going in Ukraine, not putting boots in the ground, but being tough on Vladimir Putin. And so, again, this is something that he could do, but nothing getting through Congress with people like Joe Biden. Or, I'm sorry, Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, he's going to block everything. He blocked Build Back Better. He made sure that community college, free community college, again, 2-year community college, was not going to be resurrected after it was taken out of Build Back Better. So again, really the only hope here is that President Biden cancels student loan debt and allow the states to pursue their own tuition-free education programs. New Mexico's a start. And if New Mexico can do it, well, then other states can too. All right. That's all I got time for. Thank you for going on the Nation to me today. Before I go, I'm going to read some super chats and see if there's anything going on Twitch here. So let me pull that up. All right. Let's see. Yeah, nothing going on here on Twitch. But let's go to, like I said, our YouTube super chats. We've got a couple. All right. Dango Bango with a couple, saying neutralize Ukraine has a level everything salt to earth and mass graves vibe when it comes for those ghouls. Yeah, I don't know what he means by neutralize, but that it does not sound good. I agree with at least the not sounding good part. Dango Bango says Putin doesn't want a puppet state. He wants empire. Well, I mean, that's part of empire is to create puppets and vassals. It's kind of how that works, right? Salmon Dragon says, I love your show, your intelligent humor, your community, and your unique opposition to those tyrannical Pomeranians. Yeah, well, you know, what can I say? I'm at war with the Pomeranians. What are you going to do? Somebody's got to stand up. And Dango Bango again says, each day Fox News spews its stuff. It confirms the conspiracy theory I have about free speech absolutists. Deep down, they want Fox News to exist. Well, I'm certain. Well, again, if you're a free speech absolutist, then I guess you want all the speech. There's no limit. There's no limit. Again, absolutist. So people saying the N-word, totally fine. Free speech absolutist. Now, the problem that I seem to have with that is that they'll claim to be free speech, but when you push back on somebody saying the N-word, then there's the claims of cancel culture. So, well, wait a minute. If regular people are pushing back against somebody saying terrible things, again, you know, like the N-word or go back to, you know, Michigan rape guy. Well, that's free speech too. Pushing back against them. And when they say something horrible, that's free speech. And, you know, you should be free to push back against terrible ideas and terrible people. And so the people that scream loudest about free speech are also the ones that tend to scream and screech about cancel culture and about the cancellation of people. So it just seems, it seems like it's the bit of an opposite here. You know, very strange how that works out. But all right. Anyway, Gabby Mathis, thank you for the very kind $5. All right. With that, I gotta go. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Like and share the videos, of course, as well. Yes, Wednesday, we're going to have a good Wednesday show. So please tune in, 4 p.m. Eastern, right here. That's Waldorf Nation, or on Twitch, or on Facebook, wherever you're at. Thank you so much. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. We'll see you all tomorrow.
I will eat your ass. How you like that, boy? Oh no!
Big, massive dump.
Sexual anarchy.
Disappointed!
Obama!
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.